So first off, let's talk about this EU Army.
If there is a clear majority of MEPs in the European Parliament, even if there are a number of member states, and David Cameron has said today, we have a rock-solid veto on a European army, you can't categorically sit here and say it will never happen.
There is a veto. I mean, this is...
But how many states are needed in order for a vote on a European army?
Myth after myth peddled. So, 1 minute they're telling you there's going to be a European army. We say, but we've got a veto. They go, oh no, it doesn't matter about that. Forget about the veto. There will be a European army.
So, Chucker, who are these people? Let me slow that down for you, just in case you missed it. So what we got here? We got an EU flag, but they're Irish with the lovely badge there. But whoever they're saluting and he is saluting them, he's got an EU badge, and that's an EU banner. So who are these people, Chucker?
On this issue of the European army, I've heard Dan and others. I mean, look, Dan joined the European Parliament when I think I was still at school, and they've all been threatening that there will be a European army because all these horrible Brussels bureaucrats want to create a United States of Europe, a European superstate, and it simply has not happened.
Well, it has happened because there you are. You can see them with your own eyes, people. You can see them with their thing, and they're patrolling with their guns and stuff. So either we're all collectively tripping our tits off, or Chucker is talking out of his flabby bot. Let me explain. Does the EU have an army, bunny floppy ears? No, they do not. Did Chunky Cheeks win a majority of the Parliament? Yes, he did. However, a majority of people actually voted against him, yet he still got in. It's all about how you use words, people. This is the Eurocorps and the EU battle groups. They're spending 190 billion euros a year on these fellows and are run by this girl and this guy in his lovely uniform. Look at it, it is shiny.
Following the Cold War and Balkan conflicts, European leaders took a decisive step to develop collective capabilities. Capabilities that included the creation of a credible military force. But it wasn't until the 2009 Lisbon Treaty that things really kicked off. The Common Security and Defence Policy, or CSDP, was created with solidarity serving as an impetus for joint action. The treaty created an umbrella organisation, the European External Action Service, under the reins of an already existing EU High Representative for Security and Foreign Affairs.
Meanwhile, in Germany, on DW News...
German and French troops fighting side by side, just like these soldiers of the Franco-German Brigade. If things go Jean-Claude Juncker's way, this will be the future of European defence. In an interview, the president of the EU Commission called for a European army. It's not a new idea, and it has many supporters in Germany, even in the defence ministry.
We want to expand this cooperation between different European armies so that we can utilize our joint potential, especially considering the monetary restraints.
If member countries jointly order military equipment such as tanks, they could save billions each year. It's an important argument, especially when there's a crisis. But the Ukraine conflict seems to be the main reason the joint army idea is resurfacing right now. Germany's opposition Left Party rejects the idea.
The Left Party thinks Juncker's suggestion is a bad idea. It's definitely aimed at Russia. We believe the EU should conduct a peaceful foreign policy.
There are many obstacles to the creation of a European army. Every country would have to allow Brussels to make decisions about its soldiers. That includes Germany, where currently only Parliament can determine whether to deploy Bundeswehr troops abroad.
So what were you saying, Chucker?
I've heard Dan and others. I mean, look, Dan joined the European Parliament when I think I was still at school, and they've all been threatening that there will be a European army because all these horrible Brussels bureaucrats want to create a United States of Europe, a European superstate, and it simply has not happened.
That's what I thought. But I want to be absolutely clear. EU battle groups have never been deployed, even though they do exist and do regular training. Eurocorps and 101 other different varieties of them have been deployed and in your name are in operation.
What you see,
in order for a vote on a European army.
Myth after myth peddled. So, one minute they're telling you there's going to be a European army. We say, but we've got a veto. They go, oh no, it doesn't matter about that. Forget about the veto. There will be a European army. It's just the same with Turkey. They assert Turkey is going to join the European Union. We have a veto on whether Turkey joins the European Union.
So, the Lisbon Treaty. What is it? What does it actually say? What is all the fuss about? Well, this is what it looks like. And it dictates, we need a flag, check. We need currency, check. We need a European national anthem. You're listening to it, so check. So far, so good. Article 46 of the Lisbon Treaty states the Union shall have a legal personality. Now, this was a major change on a legal basis of the EU because it transformed it from a random collection of cooperating and diplomatically elected nation states and countries to a legal entity in its own right. Legal personality enabled the EU to operate on an international stage, like a state, like the United States. That meant that it had its own diplomatic corps, it negotiated and signed international treaties and agreements, incorporating existing international treaties into its own law, and have its own representation at the UN. Under Article 9 of the Lisbon Treaty, the European Council changed from an intergovernmental body to a European Union institution. So rather than acting in the interests of the nation states who elected them, this change meant the Council would aim to promote its values, advance its objectives, its interests. These values, objectives, and interests are not determined by an election, but by existing and future EU laws. Article 9 of the Lisbon Treaty also removed member states' automatic right to an EU commissioner. It also reaffirms the independence of the Commission, as the Commission is responsible for drafting EU legislation and has what is known as the power of initiative. Such independence simply means a complete absence of accountability from any elected body. Article 48 of the Lisbon Treaty gives the EU powers to amend its own treaties without recourse to an international governmental conference, a new treaty, or the process of a national ratification. Up until the Lisbon Treaty took effect, revisions of the EU treaties required these three stages, ensuring the national governments were involved in the decision-making process. Article 48 dispenses with this and allows the European Council to make amendments without any process of national ratification. The European Union and the Lisbon Treaty do not talk about public services. Rather, they divide services into two categories. 1. Services of general economic interest. And 2. Services of general interest. While there is no actual definition of what these services are, current EU law defines economic activity as the offering of any goods and services on the market. By this definition, all current public services already fit into the services of general economic interest rather than services of general interest. Article 16 of the Lisbon Treaty places new economic and financial conditions on the provision of services of general economic interest. These conditions mean that services, including the UK's real religion, the National Health Service, and education services, are subject to these rules of competition. You wonder why the National Health Service has been privatised over the years? It's this legislation. Protocol 6 of the Lisbon Treaty mandates the EU to ensure that competition is not distorted. This provides the EU with a mandate to remove distortions from the provision of services. These distortions could include welfare, public funding, protective markets, healthcare, environmental issues, workers' rights, state monopolies, the list goes on. Articles 10 to 28 of the Lisbon Treaty advance EU control over foreign, security and defence policies, increasing the militarisation of the EU. Article 11 mandates the Union's competence in matters of common foreign and security policy shall cover all areas of foreign policy and all questions relating to the Union's security. Article 27 mandates for the progressive framing of a common Union defence policy will lead to a common defence. Article 17 specifically allows the European Council to act by qualified majority voting in foreign and security policy. Article 28C mandates member states shall undertake to improve their military capacities. Article 28/7 reaffirms that commitments and cooperation in the area of common security and defence shall be consistent with the commitments under NATO. So if you agree with everything we've discussed in this section, vote to remain. If you disagree, then vote to leave. It is your choice.